So let's talk about all the hysteria surrounding Trump, Putin negotiating the Munich Security Conference and the current geopolitical situation regarding world peace. Oh man. So to begin, because I had been asked the question why US has been very slowly doling out support to Ukraine instead of giving them everything that they need in a timely manner, which would have, without the shadow of a doubt, allowed them to crush Russia's army. Or maybe now, if they were to finally get the shit that they need in a timely manner, they could impact Russia's economy enough, push them back enough to where Putin would be in a far weaker position and maybe even would have no choice but to stop the war. So there are a lot of reasons, right? Why it really depends on the politician. And I could sit here for an hour and talk to you about some of these Cold War era guys being scared of Putin's nukes, or the fact that they're just doing the opposite of what the left is saying. Some of them, anyway. Even though it's really the left. Look, the left and right, insofar, they could bicker when it comes to domestic politics. But at the end of the day, when it comes to foreign policy, U.S. is pretty much united. There's small differences, and maybe that's a topic for another video. But they're basically lockstep insofar as foreign policy, because there are apolitical, or not apolitical, bipartisan influences that really rule the day when it comes to that, right? There's the Pentagon isn't left or right wing. Let's just simplify that. But the reason why, the biggest reason, the most important reason here, I think, why the help to Ukraine has been doled out slowly is to not completely alienate Russia and push it into the arms of China. Because just as it had historically been important to keep the German technology and manufacturing capacity away from Russia's natural resources, that role, Germany's role, has now been filled by China, or could potentially be filled by China. And if China with their industry gets their hands on that which they need in order to just say fuck globalism, basically, then that would really pose a very, very difficult challenge for the West, and perhaps one that they couldn't overcome, right? So Chinese workforce and industry getting their hands on Russian natural resources, and they got everything. And that would be an immense power. So you can't destroy Russia economically, because then you're forcing them to make deals and with China and become their vassal state, basically. They would have no choice but to give them access, and they've already been doing a little bit of that, right? But to give China access to Siberia and so on and so forth, right? Give them back Manchuria and blah, 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 blah. So you don't want that. You want Russia to be a pole of power onto its own. And in a perfect world scenario, you want Russia to be part of the Western world, which is, that has been attempted, right? And Putin refused. So maybe you could have them as a separate pole of power. So you got to keep Russia powerful enough to where they believe they could rise and, take over Europe and all this other nonsense. At least certain parts of Europe expand and grow in power and influence, have a role in European politics without actually just the hope of that, right? And so that they're not desperate enough to be pushed into full cooperation or be Russia's bitch, basically. And because Russian elite don't want to be China's bitch, there's hope for the Western world insofar as that's concerned. But insofar as the developments, recent developments, and you got to keep what I just said in mind too, because that's very important. That's why part of the reason why Trump and his team are acting the way that they are. But let's start off with Vance, who gave this complete non sequitur, I guess you'd have to say, speech, where instead of maybe looking to unite NATO, European allies with Americans, he came out criticizing them, right? Instead of talking about that which they're all there to talk about, he wants to talk about, and I'm not saying these aren't important issues, but they just have no place at this conference, maybe. He's criticizing Europe for, their democracy cracking, like what's going on in Romania, right? So basically, Russia looking to influence and steal the election is somehow being, and Romania deciding to have another election that's hopefully free of Russia's influence and illegal maneuvers. That's somehow supposed to be a weakness of democracy, but that is the democratic process, like coming through. But anyway, so he's basically kissing Russia's ass a little bit there, and it's quite hypocritical, right? But that's politics. Politics is all about hypocrisy. So it's not about democracy, right? Because the party representative, one of them, that was bitching and moaning and crying about election fraud 4 years ago to this day, all of a sudden are pro election fraud insofar as Russia's concerned. Are they really pro Russia? No, I think it's just it's rhetoric. It's a political move, kissing up to Russia a little bit, looking pro Russia on the surface anyway, extending an olive branch, if you will, to Russia before they smack them with it. Oh boy. Stay positive, my Ukrainian friends, and those of you who, like myself, are pro the old world order or the new world order, Western hegemony, Western civilization, FTW. I thought that's what we were about. I thought we were, but maybe you want that Eurasian overseer to take away your TikTok and YouTube and freedom of speech and everything else. Anyway, so Vance's remarks, even though they really have no place here, and it was just odd, really weird move. Why, how Europe could maybe take them, how they could maybe polish this turd, use some of what he was saying is stop ignoring your base. Stop punishing your people with this insane wokeism and unfettered immigration, right? You gotta be, you gotta let reason rule again, right? Immigration reform and move away from this woke insanity, right? Listen to your people. Listen to what you give your people what they want. Because if you don't, then they're gonna flip and accept, Russian Chinese overseers simply because they coddle them with this nonsense of, traditionalism. You know what I mean? So in other words, the European left has to be a little bit more rational insofar as, again, wokeism and immigration, very much like the right, which is gaining popularity only because of that, because all their other ideas, not all, but a lot of their other ideas are just absolutely fucking insane. And they are commie infiltrators, basically. They're looking to sell Europe out to Russia and China, right? That's really what this is about. And this whole, traditionalism, family values, not only is that bullshit, They don't actually believe it, as the AFD president and her own personal life proves. It's not about that. It's about gaining, winning popularity in order to fuck the people, basically, at the end of the day. So that's how I would take Vance's remarks. Shape up, liberals, and listen to your people. Give them what they want. Stop with this insane, unfettered immigration and wokeism, and let reason rule. Okay? It's not, when you look at the United States, well, I'll save that for another video. Anyway, and this comment section is basically proof of what I'm talking about, right? JD Vance is by far the most impressive VP in my lifetime. Okay, why? Thank you very much, JD Vance, for speaking for the oppressed people of Britain. The speech from JD Vance will be remembered for decades to come. The strongest and the most forward speech I've ever listened to in my so like no analysis of anything that's being said, no geopolitical discussion, right? That's what this forum is all about, this security conference. It's the same comment over and over. Look at this man's beautiful natural guy liner. He is so handsome and stately. He make me feel good. Words, reasons. This is unfortunately democracy, right? The voter base are people who don't know anything about politics, basic logic. This is how you have to manipulate them to get their vote. You have to, unfortunately, because you do live in a democracy, however flawed, you gotta pacify these NPCs. You gotta cater to them, and you gotta give them something so that they give you their vote of confidence, and keep working, uh, keep fighting your wars for you. They're patriotism, nationalism, populism, whatever it is you got to do, you got to give these people something in order that they do your bidding, basically, on the world stage. This is why I'm pro democracy, but I'm pro some kind of a fucking aptitude test where you'd have to prove that your vote should count, basically. And we already believe that to a degree because we say you got to be 18 years old or whatever it may be in any individual state, country. But it's not good enough, right? You need to pass like a basic logic test, basic understanding of basically just an aptitude test that you know what's going on. And you're not just voting because, the guy has pretty eyes and he speaks with confidence. He's an actor. That's all that he is. That's all that JD Vance is. Trump is just an actor too. A little bit more than that, but he's mostly just an actor. These guys they take orders from someone else at least to a certain degree, right? They're puppets in a way, not completely, but well, JD Vance is. One day maybe he could get to a level where he is more than that, but for the time being, he's just a puppet doing what he's told. And I'm not even too sure. Okay, I would say he didn't write, in my opinion, right? He didn't even write this speech, and he may not even understand why he's saying the things he's being told to say, but there he is saying it and doing a good job thereof. So kudos. Kind of making himself look like a clown, but I think there is a false bottom to this. There's more to it than meets the eye, right? So we're just gonna move on past Vance, who is criticizing Europe and looking like a tough big daddy, and basically helping to light a fire under Europe's ass, which is very much needed. So it is what it is. I appreciate it for what it is. That's my interpretation thereof. His speech. Then there was also Mr. Hegseth making a clown out of himself. Again, I don't know how much he understands the things that he's doing or how much of it was his idea, but my guess would be not much at all in both instances. But there he is basically uh, on the surface weakening US's negotiating position insofar as Russia is concerned by conceding a whole bunch of shit before the negotiations ever begin. And everybody's just flipping out, right? The fake news media is flipping out, going crazy, hysterical, and the fakest Kremlin propaganda news channels are happy. All these people are liars, guys. Now, I think it's good to listen to what both of them have to say, but you have to be able to find out what's true for yourself. And always keep in mind that they both lie. See, this is how people are divided. They tend to just pick sides. We all know this. I don't know why I'm even repeating this, but they pick sides, and whatever one side says, all of it is false. Therefore, right, this is the fallacy. What the absolute opposite, the other side says, is all true. No, they're both liars with agendas looking to manipulate you. Don't let them. Hmm? So what's going on, in my opinion? Well, kissing up to Russia, looking a little bit pro-Russian, where, no one's calling out Russia's war atrocities, bringing up the fact that Putin is a war criminal, while at the same time withdrawing from the International Criminal Court, or whatever that was, that action on the part of the President of the United States, not outright just blaming Russia for the war, but kind of even insinuating that Ukraine should have never gotten into the war, just using some of Kremlin's talking points, like no, like pressuring Zelensky to have elections in the country and all that stuff. That's, yeah, I could understand how someone who's easily triggered emotionally would just throw their hands up in the air, call Trump a traitor, and say that he's somehow controlled by Putin, doing Putin's bidding. What? Why would a strong man supposedly, and he's not, but he's supposed to appear as a strong man, right? It's easy being strong when you have access to the most resources and the most this strong man, they like to paint him as, he's an actor, and it's easy to appear as, a tough guy when you have access to the most resources and the most powerful military the world has ever seen. Yeah, that's easy. And Putin, for his part, since we're on the topic, is an absolute fucking coward. So this idea that Trump is just gonna bend over backwards for Putin, can you imagine what that would look like? You can't have this image and then bend over backwards for someone who's clearly weak as shit, or not as strong. A paper tiger. Let's keep it real. Yes, Ukraine is suffering terribly, no doubt about it. And if you want to split hairs and say that they're losing this war, okay, no big deal. But let's just put it into perspective and keep it real. This was supposed to be over in 3 days, maybe a week. So if anything, Ukraine is stronger than we thought, and Russia is far weaker than we thought as well. Come on, you got to keep it real. Their oil industry is getting bombarded almost daily. Their capacity has been reduced by what, like 40 some percent? They're sending these poor idiots on fucking crutches. I mean, first it was, motorcycles. Now it's electric scooters, crutches, and pretty soon they're going to be charging with fucking sabers and on donkeys and camels. Now that's not the a fair all across the board description of the Russian military, don't get me wrong, but the cracks are there. They're not doing well. Not at all. And as of late, they've been getting pushed back also, or their advances aren't as rapid. They were never really rapid, but their pace has slowed. Their economy is doing very, very poor. I'm not saying it's completely destroyed. There's no coming back from the damage that's been done, but there's a lot of damage that has been done. It's a wartime economy. That's like the only thing, one of the few things that's keeping it alive. Putin doesn't want to end this war. Long story short. For a lot of different reasons. And the fact that he has a wartime economy now is probably the biggest one. He has to, if he has to accept peace for real, which he won't. This is going to go on for a very, very long time, I have a feeling. There's going to be a freeze, but this ain't over, man. Ukraine might be all right for a bit, and maybe for a very, very long time, but he's going to push somewhere else, man. Baltics, Moldova, he's going to push somewhere else, man. He has to. This is the course he's on now, and he doesn't want peace. They're supposedly having negotiations and peace talks, and he's fucking ramping up the attacks. Clearly sending a clear fucking message. The whole Chernobyl drone being sent into the Chernobyl Jimmy hat, that's to just keep the nuclear option on the table, to remind everybody that he has that red button. Useless red button, but it's just Russian propaganda, man. It's just to get nuclear into people's heads again, right? Trauma. It's terrorism. So Russia needs a break. It can't sustain this at this rate. They at the very least need a break. That's why they're rejoicing in the Kremlin, because it looks like not only that they're going to get a break, but they're deluding themselves that this is going to be somehow also favorable to them, and they have to sell it as such to keep fucking Putin alive and people from revolting. So don't press too hard against all the Russian bots and trolls and idiots telling you this is a great victory for Mother Russia. Let them have it. It's not. Russia's fucked, and that's what this is. It just has to get fucked very, very, very slowly and with lots of fucking lube. All right? So they basically swallow this shit. That's what this is about. But Russia's fucked. Long term, Russia's fucked. And in my opinion, Ukraine's future is pretty bright. There's going to be a lot of pain, and this may still go on for quite some time. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's looking good. I'm hearing all the right things from European leaders. They understand where they are. Okay, so all these scare tactics by Trump and his team is to basically get Europeans to pull their own fucking weight. And they're realizing this and they're talking about it. Scare them into action. Like, look, we could give Russia what they want. We're in power here, United States. We could give Russia what they want. Okay? We could make deals with Putin behind your back. You're our allies, but you gotta pull your own fucking weight. Stop dicking around. Get over all this crazy immigration, wokeism. Make your people happy, right? Because you're gonna fucking need them to fight for you. And invest in your defense. Okay? And if I were to make some predictions for the future, there might be, I hope so, some nuclear power plants built in Poland. Clearly, there seems to be nuclear program, the budding of a nuclear weapons program in Ukraine. Good thing, all good things. And I expect Donald Trump to reach out to North Korea at some point in the future, soon. And because that's the wild card here. If North Korea, if Russia can somehow convince those people to go to slaughter for Russia, that's kind of an ace in the hole for Russia that could really, because they got like, what, probably 1 million motherfuckers they could send. I mean, it would take a lot of concessions from Russia and maybe even giving Korea some territory, but we'll see. Donald has to go visit his quote unquote buddy Kim or meet him somewhere somehow. At least try to open some dialogue, and I'm all for that. And I think it's in the cards. I think it's on the table. But these are more pressing issues right now. So, yeah, kissing Russia's ass scares Europeans, right? Looking pro-Russia scares Europeans, scares them into action that's desperately needed. U.S. is sending signals that they will slowly withdraw their conventional forces or invest less into their conventional forces in Europe, give them that nuclear umbrella, and maybe help expand Europe's nuclear capabilities, while again relocating to the Pacific, because you got to deal with them commies too, right? That's the easy one, dealing with those commies. China, North Korea, all right, that's next. Maybe not in that order or all at the same time. So kissing up to Putin, at least on the surface, scares people, motivates them to get their shit together, and giving Putin all these things like right off the bat before the negotiations even begin, right? Good, showing all this goodwill, trading a fucking pothead American teacher for oh my god, for some kind of crypto criminal that has helped finance to the tune of billions of dollars Russian special military operations. I mean, that's like, yeah, that looks like bending over backwards and giving Putin what he wants. And this criminal supposedly has billions of dollars stashed somewhere. So that's like sending that guy to Russia. It's like giving Russia billions of dollars to carry out their spec ops, basically, for a fucking pothead teacher. I mean, that's a huge L for Trump. Okay? If that's where this thing ends. But it doesn't. This is just the beginning. So this is what you do, I think. Give Russia what they want. Extend a whole bunch of goodwill to Russia. And Zelensky, who has become quite the politician, I have to say. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying he hasn't made mistakes. And yes, his wife gets to wear mink suits because he puts his ass on the line, or mink coats and all this. Yeah. They fucking deserve it, all right? You go do his job. Smart asses. I'm not saying he. Welcome to politics. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, welcome to politics. I don't understand. This is like, that's for the birds. All that sort of geopolitical discussion, that's for the birds, man. Go eat a dick. You're a waste of fucking time with this bullshit. Ukraine is so corrupt. And like this type of rhetoric, go to Colonel McGregor's, who's fucking wrong about everything all the goddamn time. Go to his channel and go keep sucking his dick, you idiot. Those of you that are, shout out to all the real. I know I sometimes sound like I'm insulting everybody to whom it may concern. Those are my letters. They always start with that. It's implied. Anyway, so, and Zelensky's playing his part because he's basically, he says what he has to say, and he keeps the line that Ukraine has to be involved in the negotiations. It's there. Ukraine is in the negotiations. Oh, but Trump talked to Putin behind his back. Okay. Oh, like, shit's so for the birds, man. This sort of like decorum. Oh, it looks bad. Yeah, Trump saying that he's going to go to Russia. If he were to do that, yeah, that would look bad. But maybe sometimes you gotta give somebody a gift, a poisoned apple, however you want to call it. Sometimes you gotta do certain things. It's diplomacy. It's deal making. I don't think it's gonna happen, right? Putin is too big of a fucking coward to come to the U.S., and Trump might be too proud at the end of the day to go to Russia. That would look. It would be a sign of weakness. Don't get me wrong, but you could make yourself look weak and set a trap for somebody. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that's what's happening here, because I just don't see U.S. bending over to Russia. Why? Russia's weak. U.S. is strong. Yeah? And if Putin, this perceived strongman, really just a fucking coward, is to be made to look like he's dictating to Trump, come on, that's like political suicide. It's not going to happen. I don't think so anyway. So Zelensky's playing his part. He's holding his feet and he's drawing a line in the sand, and that's fine. But he's not bitching and moaning too much about Trump and Putin talking. Like, what did you expect? Putin doesn't want to talk to Zelensky because he's a fucking coward. Can you imagine? They may have to, and they probably will eventually, but can you imagine these two meeting? Zelensky's just going to be shooting daggers at this fucking guy for all the things that he has done to his people, his country, his corporation, and him personally more than anything. All them sleepless nights, all them moments where he thought he was dead, about to die. Look at how much Zelensky has matured and aged in the last 3 years. It's incredible. So he snorts a little bit of yay on the side to keep him going. More power to him. Say all the fucking straight edge traditional types out there. Lusting after other men. Look at the guyliner. He's so stately. What a strong man. Come on, man. Faggot shit. Anyway. So Zelensky just gave in to Trump. Basically, like, you do you, baby. Do what you gotta do. We're willing to negotiate. We want peace. Right? He's holding his feet on certain issues and being as strong as he can be at this point in time. But he's basically saying, yeah, ball's in your court. I agree. We want peace. We want to stop this. We will give up territory in some way, shape, or form. No NATO. Fine. NATO was never in the cards for Ukraine. This is fucking Russian propaganda for all the fucking idiots out there. That was never an option for Ukraine. Never. Not a serious option. It's a consideration. Yeah, it's been in talks. It's been considered. But there was never any chance so far for Ukraine to be in NATO. That just, Jesus fucking Christ. That the fact that this even has to be explained to people is retarded. So that was never an option. So Ukraine's saying, oh, no NATO for the foreseeable future. It's like they're not giving up shit. They're giving up a demand, an unrealistic demand, right? Bid high, settle somewhere in the middle. They never, trust me when I tell you this, no serious politician in the Ukrainian government actually thought that they had much of a chance to be in NATO. It's the bargaining chip. Put that out there as much as you can. Scare Russia. Of course, do it. Anyway, we're getting there. We're getting there, guys. So he's doing the right thing. He's just letting Trump take over and agreeing to almost everything. Well, behind the scenes, probably to everything Trump is saying, right? He's going to do a minerals deal and all that stuff. And Putin is being, pampered, and he's getting a positive PR spin. He's looking like the strong man. His mill bloggers and propagandists are fucking raising the victory banner and popping open champagne bottles, or as Bolton said, drinking vodka straight out the damn bottle. Yeah. Let them get drunk on all their delusions. Let them celebrate their fucking downfall. Ball's in his court. in Putin's court. They're putting the ball in Putin's court. They're just giving in to him. Like, look, Ukraine already agreed to basically everything. They're not putting up any resistance. You've gotten all these goodwill gestures from us. We're not treating you like a war criminal. We're not even really blaming you for starting this war. Come on, Putin, ball's in your court. What did Trump say going into this? If Ukraine doesn't agree, no more money. If Putin doesn't agree, we're going to rain all types of hell down on them, right? Zelensky already agreed. It's your turn, Putin. You have to agree, right? Or they're going to arm Ukraine to the teeth. And then what? You better go fucking get more donkeys and camels. I don't know where you're going to get them from, but or announce general mobilization. See how that goes for you. Fucking hell, there's going to be recruiting offices blowing up all over Russia, for starters. How many more men does Russia have to sacrifice? Women are going to do all the jobs. Some trad country there you got there. Anyway, so they put the ball in Putin's court. They, at least on the surface, bend over backwards. But if you listen to what both the Western media and Russian propagandists are saying, what they give us an insight into these negotiations, right? Because so far you've been hearing Ukraine has to give this up, this, and Ukraine's getting fucked, right? Given into Russia. Yeah, but it wouldn't be a negotiation unless Russia had to give up something. So they're getting set up, I think. And what, again, Russian commentators, Kremlin propagandists said, I don't know if anybody caught it. I don't know if anyone cares to fucking listen to what they have to say. Is there's going to have to be some type of not a DMZ, but a buffer zone, right? There's going to be a territory tens of kilometers deep. How long is the front? So I had to do some math, whip out the calculator so we could all be sure of what we're talking about here. So the Russian-Ukrainian front is about 1,000 kilometers, right? Let's say this, we'll just call it a DMZ, is 10 kilometers deep, right? That's 10,000 square kilometers, right? And how many Russians died per square kilometer? About 100. So this would, well, that doesn't make any sense. So that's a recent average, or average as of late, right? So basically, all Russian lives lost in this war would be for very little, or you'd have to count many more men per square kilometers. Because if this DMZ is on the table, like the Russian commentators say it is, right? And I would venture, I guess it's going to be tens of kilometers. Let's just say 50 kilometers, right? Times 1,000. Well, that would be obviously 50,000, right? So that's 50,000 square kilometers that Russia has to give up like that. Let's say somewhere between 10,000 to 100,000 square kilometers. If it's to be 100 kilometers buffer zone, right? That's what? 20 to 200 Kursks, or the amount of territory that Ukraine has in Kursk. Russia would have to give up like that. Let's just say let's be conservative and say it's 10 kilometers over 1,000. 10,000 square kilometers. So 20 times the territory Ukraine still has in Kursk. And what's going to happen to that? I guess we don't know yet. Yeah, so they buttered up Putin, right? They presented him with this They gave him a whole bunch of shit. They're repeating Kremlin talking points, his type of rhetoric. They're giving him what he wants, making themselves look like Kremlin stooges, clowns in some instances. Okay? Getting heavily criticized by everybody. Putin's looking good. They're looking bad. They bend over backwards for you, homie. What are you going to do? You're going to play hardball all of a sudden? After being given all this shit? All right, well, we're just going to have to arm Ukraine to the teeth and take that territory where all those fucking minerals are because, well, guess what? Russia holds it. I'm supposed to believe Trump wants Ukraine's minerals, and they're in serious talks. He keeps repeating this about exploiting those, but he's too dumb. He doesn't have the intel, right? His people, intelligence services, aren't briefing him on the fact that, well, Mr. President, you're trying to make a deal for Ukraine's minerals that the majority thereof are in Russian hands right now. Okay, well, that's why we need the DMZ. And probably where those minerals are, it's going to go deeper into, this contested territory. It has to be this way. How else is U.S. going to get access to these minerals? If Russia doesn't want to give them up, well, then U.S. is going to fight using Ukrainian soldiers. They're going to go all in, and they're going to go take that shit. And once they got it, Trump is talking. I don't know how true or how serious he is about it, but it's on the table, at least insofar as rhetoric is concerned, using American soldiers to protect U.S. assets in Ukraine, right? If they make a deal, and maybe it'll be mercenaries, even better. But if they make a deal for all those minerals that are in Ukraine, well, they're going to have to fucking have some kind of security force to take care of that shit, to protect their assets, their investment. So what's Putin going to do? They need to spin this as a victory, and it's great, and it's all that he's ever wanted, and all this other fucking bullshit. Because if once the negotiations begin, and he caves into Trump's demands to have those fucking minerals, he's going to look like a bitch to his own people. He's going to have a lot of explaining to do. He might just go to sleep and not wake up one morning. Just saying. Or, it's going to be a car bomb. Shout out to that Satanist bitch, Dugina. Or another one of them exploding scooters or something, you know what I mean? The Ukrainians did it. His plane's going to fall out of the sky, right? Anyway, yeah. I think there's too much hysteria. We don't really know what the deal is exactly. But if you listen to both sides, yeah, Putin's getting a lot. On the surface, seems to be getting a lot. But I mean, what about the minerals? How do you solve that? That's on the table too. You tell me, how do you solve that? Russia's just going to give access to U.S. Mining companies or whoever they make deals with to go into Russia and get that? Well, if that's the case, then you're going to need, again, security forces. Maybe not NATO technically, but might as well be. And then who is going to, I know this is still being negotiated, but who is going to keep the peace in this DMZ? NATO countries' forces? Well, not officially under the NATO banner. Who gives a shit? That's not demilitarizing Ukraine. That's not pushing NATO out of Ukraine. Those were the stated goals, to push the West further back. Looks like the West is moving in. How are you going to get the minerals, Mr. Trump? So this ain't over. Things just got interesting. So Have hope. And one last thing before I go about the Ukrainian elections and Trump pushing the Kremlin line insofar as that. Well, it makes sense because if they are to, let's say they're to have elections ASAP, that's good for Ukrainians because Russia's going to have to agree to ceasefire. You can't have there's no way to have legitimate election when the polling stations are getting shahided or fucking iskandered. That's not going to be legitimate. And what about all the occupied territories, disputed territories? How do you solve that? Anyway, let's just talk about Ukraine right now. Well, maybe you might have to let some of those people go from those occupied territories. Bring Ukrainians back home. Maybe bring those children too while you're at it. Anyway, so an election is good for everybody because it's an immediate ceasefire. And if Russia breaches that, they're in trouble. And in order, yeah, Putin is saying that Zelensky is not a legitimate leader. And he has an argument there, right? Anything that this guy, it's not really, it could go either way, don't get me wrong, but it's an argument that you have to consider. So in order to, again, please Putin, all right, let's have a new leader in. And he's going to be under US's thumb. And, it's not going to be a pro-Russian guy. That election is going to be monitored. It's going to be a pro-US guy. And that's not, you don't even really need US interference to get that right now. Okay? Of course it's going to be Putin has fucking destroyed his chances of legitimately electing any pro-Russian politician in Ukraine for anything. Fuck that. That's gone. So they'll ensure these elections are legit. And if there's any meddling, we're going to have to do it again. And if Russia tries to meddle, that's bad, Russia. You're not playing the game. So anyway, elections are good because it's an immediate ceasefire. The Ukrainian people get to breathe. Putin gets his way. He has less of an option to wiggle out by saying, oh, Zelensky was not a legitimate, blah, 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 whatever. There's going to be a new guy. And it's going to, that whatever agreement they come to, okay, is going to have the mandate of the Ukrainian people because they will have elected a guy that's going to sign that. They're going to give them their vote of confidence. They're going to have to accept it. So this is good all around. It's, if you want a lasting peace, I'm not saying you can't do that with Zelensky, but it would be better to have the Ukrainian people choose their leader that signs this. And it would be good for the West, and this would be more of an assurance. It would be harder for Russia, not to say that they wouldn't break an international agreement. I mean, they have a long-standing history of doing this. But at the very least, it's some pressure. It's just, yeah, give in to him. It's good for you, basically, right? Yeah, give him what he wants. At the very least, it's hard for him to, he's being given, again, all this goodwill and an olive branch is being extended to him. However poisoned it may be, he has to take it. And then he's going to get smacked with it and put in his place, in my opinion. So this ain't over. When I first heard news, watched this conference, I was like, oh shit, I got triggered too. But then I was like, I'm not going to say shit. Let me listen to what the Russians have to say, listen to some experts, take my time, think about this, and try to read between the fucking lines. So the negotiations are just beginning. And yes, the West is US, Putin, Trump. Yeah, they're giving in a little bit. Yeah. That's because they want a lot. That's because they want a lot. And it's gonna be glorious if Trump gets what he wants, right? The minerals that are under Russia's control. It's going to be glorious. Either listening to the Russian propaganda spin or them turning on Putin. So it's going to be interesting. Let's see what happens, guys. Don't be what they want you to be, right? A triggered fool reacting emotionally. Just take your time and think about what's happening and try to figure out what's really going on. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we'll find out soon enough. But this idea that Trump's just going to present himself as a weakling giving in to Putin with no demands of his own. Come on, man. Fake news.